In the bustling city of Verona, nestled between gleaming high-rises and neon-lit streets, lived a man named Dorian Vale. Dorian wasn't just successful, he was the youngest partner at a prestigious architectural firm known for designing skyscrapers that kissed the clouds. By the age of 35, he had the money, the status, and the kind of influence people envied. But Dorian lacked one thing: peace. Dorian had grown up in a modest suburb where his parents, Felix and Marla Vale, had always struggled to make ends meet. His father worked as a janitor in a school, and his mother balanced two part-time jobs, cashier by day, seamstress by night. They had dreams, sure, but dreams didn't pay bills. Dorian remembered cold winters with the heat turned down, and dinners where canned beans passed for luxury. He swore, as a boy, that one day he would take care of them so thoroughly they'd never have to worry again. And he did. As soon as he earned his first big paycheck, Dorian began supporting his family. At first, it was the small things: a new fridge, a better mattress, covering a month's electricity. But soon, it evolved. He paid off their mortgage, remodeled their home, sent them on international cruises. He even funded his sister Penelope's online boutique when she claimed she wanted to pursue her passion. When their aging sedan died, he surprised his parents with a sleek sapphire blue SUV, complete with heated seats and an advanced GPS system his father couldn't stop raving about. Dorian became the family's guardian angel. He drafted their estate plans, negotiated with hospitals when his mother needed knee surgery, and even bailed his cousin Troy out of a DUI-related lawsuit. While other professionals his age enjoyed Mediterranean getaways and luxury ski resorts, Dorian burned through 80-hour work weeks, funneling most of his earnings back to the people he thought he was protecting. But something was off. Gratitude was never expressed. It was implied, awkwardly, and only in public. In private, Dorian's efforts were treated like utilities, expected, never celebrated. He told himself they were just uncomfortable expressing emotion, a byproduct of their modest upbringing. So, when his mother Marla finally announced her retirement after decades of work, Dorian saw a golden opportunity. He would throw her a retirement bash so lavish, so perfect, that she would have no choice but to feel proud of him, not for his money, but for who he'd become. He rented the entire upper floor of the Orchid Vault, a 5-star restaurant with panoramic city views. He arranged live jazz, designed a slideshow chronicling her life, and even commissioned a custom cake shaped like a spool of thread, a tribute to her seamstress days. Over 100 guests arrived: friends, family, old co-workers. Everyone marveled at the decor, the elegance, the generosity. For a moment, Dorian felt content. Maybe this was the moment he'd finally be more than a bank account to them. Maybe tonight, he'd be seen. But fate, as always, had other plans. Halfway through the evening, Dorian stepped outside onto the balcony to take a business call. As he returned, ready to raise a toast, he paused near the corridor by the restrooms, drawn by the unmistakable sound of his mother's voice. And he really thinks that just because he pays for everything, he matters. Laughter followed. Familiar voices, Penelope's condescending snort, Troy's mocking tone, and worst of all, his father's amused grunt. Poor kid, Marla chuckled, always so desperate to be noticed. We raised a fool who thinks he's some kind of hero just because he picked up a few bills. Dorian felt the air leave his lungs. He didn't move. Couldn't. Their words didn't feel like knives, they felt like hammers, smashing everything he had built, everything he believed about love and family. He wasn't their son. He was their payroll. He stood there for several long minutes. Guests laughed inside, oblivious to the man breaking apart in the hallway. When Dorian finally walked back into the celebration, he wore a mask forged from years of emotional labor, perfect, composed, unreadable. He returned to his table, took out his phone, and logged into the banking system he used to manage the family's finances. One by one, he canceled every standing order: the mortgage, utilities, car insurance, Penelope's boutique budget. All gone. "What are you doing?" Penelope asked as she saw him scrolling. He didn't look up. "Setting things right." "You mean?" She trailed off, confusion turning into horror. "You're on your own now," he said, his voice low and firm. Marla walked over, her smile faltering. "Dorian, don't make a scene." "Oh, I'm not. This is the quietest I've ever been. Be reasonable." "I have been. For decades." Gasps echoed across the room. Dorian stood, pocketed his phone, and turned to face his relatives. "You think I'm a fool?" he asked, voice shaking but loud enough for the nearest stables to hear. Fine. Let's see how you manage without your fool. Troy muttered something, but Dorian was already walking away. He didn't bother with goodbyes. They had made it clear, he wasn't family. He was a service. And the service was officially terminated. He left the Orchid Vault that night not as a son, not as a brother, but as something far more powerful, free. The night Dorian left his mother's retirement party, he walked the city streets alone. No destination. No purpose. Just the rhythmic pulse of his leather shoes hitting the pavement and the cold wind biting through his tailored suit. The lights of Verona glittered like indifferent stars above him, mocking his disillusionment. He'd thought cutting them off would bring instant peace, but what he felt instead was a strange, hollow weightlessness. By morning, the silence began. No texts. No calls. No thank you, no please don't go. It was as though his absence hadn't registered. But Dorian knew better. The wheels of entitlement always spun a few beats slower after they lost power. 3 days in, the dam burst. It started with a voicemail from his mother. Dorian, the electricity bill wasn't paid. It's been shut off. Can you please fix it today? He let it sit. Unanswered. Deleted. Next came his father. Son, I know you're upset, but the car insurance lapsed. If we get pulled over. Look, just sort it out, okay? Then Penelope, are you really doing this over one stupid comment? Grow up. You're being childish. By the end of the first week, Dorian had accumulated 37 missed calls. By the end of the month, 105. They didn't get it. They still thought this was a punishment. A tantrum. They didn't understand it was a declaration of independence. Their tactics shifted swiftly from desperate to devious. The passive-aggressive social media posts came next. Penelope posted a black-and-white photo of their old home, captioned, "Real love isn't transactional." A clear jab. Dorian almost laughed. The same sister who once begged him for money to fund essential inventory for her boutique, which turned out to be designer handbags, now wanted to preach about unconditional love. A week later, his mother called again. This time, her voice was brittle. Dorian. We've been living by candlelight. It's cold. We don't even have heat. Your father. He's getting sick. How could you do this to us? The guilt nudged his conscience. But only briefly. Dorian remembered all the times he'd suggested helping them create a monthly budget. He'd offered to hire a financial advisor. Every time, they brushed it off with a patronizing "you worry too much, sweetheart." He didn't worry anymore. They showed up at his office next. It was a Tuesday morning, just before a critical meeting with a client designing a tech campus in Oslo. His assistant's voice buzzed into the intercom. "Mr. Vale. Your family's here. They're very insistent." He sighed, massaging his temples. "Put them in conference room C. I'll handle it." Dorian walked in to find the entire troupe, Marla, Felix, and Penelope. The smiles were gone. Replaced by frustration, worry, and something approaching panic. "Dorian," Marla began, as if rehearsed. "This has gone on long enough." He didn't sit. He stayed standing, towering over them with arms crossed. "No, it hasn't. It's barely started." "Don't be dramatic," Felix huffed. "The bills are piling up. We're behind on everything. The mortgage, the phone plans." "Not my problem," Dorian replied, stone-faced. "You can't just cut us off," Penelope barked. "I didn't cut you off," he corrected. "I cut the leash." "Wow," she said bitterly, "listen to yourself. You're so smug." "No. I'm free." Marla tried the gentle approach. "Sweetheart, we never meant to hurt you. We just thought you liked helping us." "Did I ever get a choice?" he asked. Silence. Felix leaned forward, softening his tone. "How about a compromise? We'll handle the small things. But can you just take care of the big ones, the house, the car, the essentials?" Dorian pulled out a folder and laid it on the table. Inside was a drafted contract, written in precise legal language. He tapped it once. "I'll resume payments under one condition: you sign this. It states you'll pay me back every cent, with interest." All three of them froze. Marla's expression twisted in disbelief. "You're joking." "I've never been more serious," Dorian replied. Penelope recoiled. "You expect us to pay you back? Since when is family about invoices? Since you turned me into your unpaid accountant, chauffeur, and therapist." Felix banged his fist on the table. "You're acting like a stranger." Dorian stared at him, cold. You made me a stranger the night you laughed at me behind my back. Marla stood up, trembling. Keep your money, Dorian. But don't expect us to come crawling when you realize you need your family. I won't, he said. They stormed out, leaving the unsigned contract behind. It was quiet again. For a while. Then came the next escalation. An unfamiliar voice rang through his phone one evening. Dorian? It's Arthur, your parents' neighbor. Hi? Look, I don't want to meddle, but they're not doing well. Your mom's been crying nonstop. Your dad hasn't left the porch in days. They're in bad shape. Dorian sighed. Arthur, did they tell you why they're in this position? No, Arthur admitted. They said something about you abandoning them. They left out the part where I funded their lives for over a decade. I see. Arthur paused. I didn't know. Now you do. Please don't call me again about this. Dorian hung up. The final push came through an email from his firm's HR department. Dorian, a woman claiming to be your mother called this morning. She was concerned about your mental state. Suggested you might be having a breakdown. He blinked. She said what? She told us your workload was harming your well-being. Suggested you might need time off. It wasn't concern, it was sabotage. Dorian smiled, tightly. Thank you for telling me. If she calls again, tell her to stay out of my professional life. He left work early that day. Went home. Uncorked a bottle of red wine and sat by the window, staring at the city. He didn't feel anger anymore. Not even sadness. Just clarity. He had spent so long trying to earn their love by buying their comfort. But love built on dependence wasn't love, it was debt in disguise. He was done paying. And for the first time in his life, he felt rich. The air in Dorian's apartment grew heavier with every day of silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the calm before the next storm. He had anticipated rage, guilt-tripping, maybe even some sudden apology laced with manipulation. What he didn't expect was the silence to end in the form of a scam. It began with a voicemail from Penelope. Her voice trembled with manufactured desperation. Dorian. It's Dad. He's in trouble. Big trouble. Please, just call me back. He didn't respond immediately. He listened to it again, this time noting the exact tone, the pauses, rehearsed. He played it once more while drinking coffee. Then, curiosity piqued, he called her back. Against better judgment. She answered instantly. Dorian, she gasped. Thank God. I didn't think you'd call. What's going on? He said, flatly. It's Dad. He borrowed money from the wrong people. Some kind of private lenders. They're threatening us. They said if we don't pay back $60,000 by the end of the month, they'll take legal action or worse. Dorian tilted his head. Legal action? For loan shark debt? Well. Yeah, Penelope stammered. They said. No, they didn't, Dorian cut in. Real loan sharks don't send legal threats. They send fists. There was a pause. You're lying, he said. You made that up. No. I swear. Who's the lender? What? The company name. Who are these people? It's called Premier Capital Lending. Dorian laughed. A short, humorless bark. That's a real bank. You just Googled something official sounding. I didn't. Don't embarrass yourself further, Penny. This is the worst con you've ever tried. Sloppy, even by your standards. I'm telling you the truth, she insisted, voice rising. Then let me talk to Dad. He's not home right now. Too stressed. Of course. Too stressed to answer, too real to be put on the phone. He knew now with certainty, there was no debt, no loan sharks, no real emergency. Just another elaborate attempt to pry open his wallet with fear. You've had years of practice, Penelope, he said coolly. But this is pathetic. Next time, write a script. He hung up without waiting for a reply. The following week, the campaign escalated from scams to slander. He was midway through reviewing a blueprint layout for an eco tower in Helsinki when an email with the subject line, "Are you really doing this to your own mother?" popped up in his inbox. The sender was anonymous, but the contents made Dorian's blood boil. It was a GoFundMe page. A public fundraiser titled, "Desperate Mother Left Destitute by Her Son, a Heartless Architect." There, in block text, was the lie. After years of dedicating her life to her children, Marla Vale now faces homelessness after being cruelly cut off by her son, a wealthy man who abandoned her in her time of need. Below that, old family photos, one Dorian hadn't seen in years. Him as a child, hugging his mother. Graduation day. A birthday cake lit by candles. Moments twisted into evidence. Even worse, the page used his full name. Not just Dorian, but Dorian Vale, architect at Lyric Structures. It wasn't just manipulation. It was character assassination. He scrolled down to the donation tally, $14,200 raised. Sympathy and digital strangers handing over their money, completely unaware that it was all a fabrication. He closed his laptop slowly. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was war. The first thing he did was call Marcellus, an old friend from college who had built a career in cybersecurity. Mark. I need help tracing an IP address. A fundraiser. Fraudulent. Text me the link, Mark said. Within hours, he had the answer. Guess what? Mark messaged. IP tracked to Penelope's condo. Looks like it was launched from her laptop. You want screenshots? Send everything. The next call was to his attorney, Gianna Hartley, a no-nonsense litigator who specialized in defamation cases. I need to take legal action against someone, he told her. Who's the target? My family. After a brief silence, she replied, all right. Send me everything. We'll hit them with a cease and desist by tonight and file a claim if they don't comply. That night, as Verona's skyline flickered behind his window, Dorian sat with a glass of scotch and reread every line of the GoFundMe page. For a moment, he didn't feel anger. He felt pity, for a family so comfortable lying, they'd monetize it. The fundraiser was removed within 48 hours. Donations frozen. Penelope called in a fury. You had no right. She screamed into his voicemail. He saved the recording. Then he called her back. Oh, I had every right, he said, voice calm. It's called fraud. You stole from strangers. Congratulations. Now you're not just a leech, you're a criminal. We were just trying to survive. No, he said. You were trying to manipulate. And now you're being held accountable. He hung up. A week later, Gianna informed him that Penelope had refunded the donors to avoid further legal action. Marla and Felix, now drowning in bills, defaulted on their mortgage. The SUV he'd bought them was repossessed. Penelope's boutique shuttered. Their empire of entitlement had finally collapsed. Then came the final blow. A voicemail from Marla. Her voice was hollow, stripped of pride. Dorian, I know you hate us. But we're still your family. I don't know what to do anymore. Please. Just talk to me. He sat on the edge of his bed, listening in silence. Then, without a word, he deleted it. No callback. No anger. Just a decision. They were no longer his responsibility. Not legally. Not emotionally. Not morally. The next day, he walked into Lyric Structures with a crisp navy blue suit, head held high. He signed off on a new international project, then left work early to catch a flight, no destination, just escape. He wanted air that hadn't been poisoned by guilt. Above the clouds, 30,000 feet in the sky, Dorian Vale finally smiled. Not because they had lost. But because he had finally won. Months passed. The city changed seasons, painting its trees with amber leaves and dusting the air with early winter frost. Dorian Vale walked through it all with a new clarity. No more financial calls. No late-night emergencies. No demands hidden under the guise of family. He'd returned to what he once was, a man whose time and money were his own. He filled the newfound silence with small joys, morning walks with hot coffee, museum exhibits he'd missed during his workaholic years, jazz sets at midnight lounges. He even took his first real vacation, no phones, no meetings, just him and the sea off the coast of Santorini. For once, life wasn't about survival, it was about living. But peace, he would learn, was never permanent. One Thursday evening, just after finishing a final draft of a proposal for a new environmental design complex, his phone buzzed with a call from an unfamiliar number. He almost let it ring out, until he saw the name, Uncle Royce. Royce was a second cousin once removed, technically, but everyone just called him Uncle. Dorian hadn't spoken to him in years, not since a childhood birthday barbecue. Royce lived 2 states away and barely interacted with the core family. Which made this call suspicious. Still, curiosity won out. He answered. Hello? Dorian, hey, the voice on the other end crackled. It's Royce. You got a minute? Dorian leaned against the windowsill, watching the lights flicker across downtown. Sure. What's going on? There was a hesitant pause. Look, I don't usually meddle in this stuff. You know that. But I got a call from your mom. Dorian's stomach twisted, not from guilt, but from the sheer predictability of it. Let me guess. She told you I abandoned them. Royce sighed. Yeah. Pretty much. Said you cut them off out of nowhere, left them in the lurch. And did she mention the 15 years I paid their bills? The car I bought them? The house I paid off? She may have left that out. Of course she did. Royce was silent for a long moment. Then, they're not doing good, Dorian. Your dad's drinking again. Penelope's business is shot to hell. And your mom? She looks different. Frail. Dorian said nothing. The image of his once fiery, sharp-tongued mother withering under her own choices struck a complicated chord in him. I'm not calling to guilt you, Royce added quickly. I just figured. Maybe you should know. Dorian nodded to himself. Thanks for letting me know. But I've made my decision. I get it, kid. I really do. Just thought you deserved the full picture. The line went dead. He didn't sleep much that night. Not from regret, but from the uneasiness of knowing what rock bottom might look like for the people who had treated him like a lifeline they were entitled to sever at will. A few more weeks passed. The weather grew colder. Then came another surprise. It was a woman's voice on the line this time. Shaky, gentle, cautious. Dorian. It's me. Kelly. He paused, stunned. Kelly? Jacob's wife? Jacob was another cousin, loud, always drunk at reunions, never particularly close. But Kelly was different. Quiet. Observant. She had always seemed decent. The only one who never made fun of Dorian when he brought design sketches to family cookouts instead of sports stories. Kelly? He said. Is everything all right? I'm not sure, she admitted. I debated calling. But I thought. You'd want to know. A long pause. Your parents moved in with Penelope. Dorian blinked. Moved in? Yeah. They lost the house. They're living in Penelope's tiny apartment now. It's bad, Dorian. Really bad. He rubbed his temple, preparing for the next guilt-laced appeal. But Kelly didn't beg. She didn't demand. Instead, her voice dropped lower. Your mom's not doing well. I think she's sick. Dorian sat up straight. Sick how? She's lost a lot of weight. She barely speaks. She just lies in the guest room. She won't go to a doctor. Penelope says they can't afford it. And Dad? Drinking every night. Slurring. He got into a fight with a neighbor over parking last week. Police came. Dorian closed his eyes. Why are you telling me this, Kelly? She hesitated. Because your mom asked me to. She didn't want to call you herself. She said she'd rather die than beg. He almost chuckled. Classic Marla. But I think. She's hoping you'll show up anyway. He leaned against the kitchen counter, silent. The hum of the fridge was the only sound in his apartment. I know they hurt you, Kelly continued. And they don't deserve your help. I'm not saying they do. But I also know you. And I know this isn't easy. Dorian exhaled. No. It's not. After a pause, he asked, why are you really calling me, Kelly? She didn't lie. Because I don't want to be part of this anymore. They've turned on each other. It's toxic. And I just needed to tell someone the truth before I walk away. Dorian's voice was calm. You're a good person, Kelly. Don't let them drag you down. She let out a sad laugh. Too late for that. Click. He stood in his apartment for a long time after the call, staring at the reflection of city lights in his window. Then, for the first time in half a year, he unblocked his mother's number. He didn't call. He didn't ask questions. He just sent one message. I know you're sick. Go to a hospital. You can still fix this for yourself. But don't ever expect anything from me again. This is the last time I'll acknowledge you. The message was marked as read within seconds. No reply came. And that silence? It was the first honest thing they had ever given him. It had been 6 months since Dorian Vale last heard his mother's voice. Half a year since the calls stopped, since the messages dried up, since the final scam dissolved under legal weight. In that time, he hadn't reached out, hadn't searched for updates, hadn't even spoken his family's names aloud. And yet, the echoes of their voices sometimes lingered in the spaces between silence. A memory here. A phrase there. But they no longer held power over him. Freedom, Dorian discovered, wasn't loud. It wasn't a dramatic exit or a fiery speech. It was quiet. It was peace. It was waking up in the morning without dread. It was silence, and finally being okay with it. His life had changed in subtle but powerful ways. He started seeing a therapist, not because he was broken, but because he wanted to understand why it had taken him so long to let go. He invested more time in design competitions, rediscovered the joy in creating rather than managing. He joined a hiking group. He adopted a dog, a mutt named Sawyer, who had more loyalty in one paw than Dorian's entire bloodline. He built a new circle of people around him. Not flashy, not transactional. Just kind. People who didn't care about his bank balance, only his presence. For the first time in decades, he felt human again. Then, one cool spring evening, Dorian arrived home after an impromptu dinner with friends and saw something unexpected. A plain white envelope taped to his apartment door. No postage. No address. Just one word on the front, written in shaky cursive. Dorian. He stared at it for a long moment. Then peeled it off, walked inside, and opened it. Inside was a single-page handwritten note. Dear Dorian. I won't ask you to forgive me. I know I don't deserve that. I just wanted to tell you that I'm sorry. Not for the money. Not for the car. Not even for the house. But for treating you like a service instead of a son. We didn't see you, Dorian. We only saw what you gave us. And by the time we realized what we lost, you were already gone. You were the strongest one out of all of us. We raised a boy and relied on the man without ever thanking him. I don't expect anything from this letter. But I needed you to know that your absence made us see everything. Even if you never respond, I hope you find peace. Love always. Mom. He didn't cry. Not because he didn't feel anything, but because his grief had long since turned into something else. Not bitterness. Not hate. Just understanding. She didn't apologize to get something from him. Not this time. There was no bank detail at the bottom. No "can we talk?" No request. It was the closest she had ever come to speaking to him as a mother and not a debtor. He folded the letter neatly and slid it into the back of a drawer. Not as a keepsake, but as a bookmark on a chapter now closed. 2 weeks later, Dorian received word through a mutual acquaintance, Kelly, once again. She had quietly left the family apartment, moved to a different city, started over. During their brief call, she mentioned in passing. Your mom went to a clinic last month. She's still sick. But she's trying. For herself, not for anyone else. That's new. And my dad? Dorian asked. Kelly hesitated. Still angry. Still blaming everyone but himself. And Penelope? She's hit bottom. But not enough to stop digging. Dorian thanked her and ended the call without another word. It didn't bring him relief or sadness, just confirmation. They were still who they were. But they were doing it without him now. That same night, he sat on his balcony with Sawyer curled at his feet. A soft wind rustled through the city. In the distance, the lights of Verona blinked like quiet stars. He thought back to all the times he'd rushed to save someone who didn't want saving. How often he'd bent until he nearly broke, just to be seen. But now, he saw himself. Not as an architect, not as a provider, not as a role someone else assigned to him. Just Dorian. He raised his glass of wine in the quiet air, to no one and nothing. To freedom, he whispered. And he meant it. From that moment on, he didn't look back. Not with bitterness, not with regret, but with the calm certainty of someone who'd survived the storm and finally learned how to live in the sun.